All right, welcome to DCAP Studios. I'm with Chris Collins from Amity Cashflow. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing incredible. It's a beautiful
Yeah,
day here in Newport Beach. Sun is shining. I can't complain, man.
I don't think that you could. I'm in San Diego, same kind of weather. I think it's always like a little bit cooler here, which I do like. But yeah, man, I'm really excited to talk to you today. We're just getting out with our software. We're coming out with it in beta. We're looking at around December. And so I've been on Facebook and stuff, and obviously that's where we met. I think we both have the same uh, love affair with Mauricio. I see how you comment and how you're just so stoked to be a part of that group, and I feel the same way. And I was thinking about like, why do I feel that way? Uh, and I see other people feel that way too. And I think it's because like with Mauricio's group and all the legal stuff, it scares me, right? Like we're in such a heavy compliance industry, real estate syndications,
Hmm.
and it's just so scary how easy it is to break the law, and then it just could you could end up in jail, you could all these other things. So being in a group like that where I feel like I'm getting all this knowledge is it makes me sleep better at night. I kind of felt like you had the same feeling as well.
It's definitely a big part of the industry, and it's a part that I don't think a lot of people pay enough attention to. Like it's something I don't know why I've always drawn to that side of it. Like, am I being compliant? Am I doing the right things? Am I doing the wrong things? I have books on the legal side of it in my bookshelf behind me, and it's like most people don't want to read those books. They're very dry and very boring. And what I've found incredible online, for better for worse, is so many people will give you their expertise, their opinion for free. And that's why I don't think people acknowledge or recognize it in some of these groups where an attorney who should be charging you hundreds of dollars an hour to answer your questions will go on there for an hour at a time and answer your questions live. So
And for free,
for
right?
free.
For
And I
free.
get it. It's helping their brand and it's helping potential future clients. But still, like if you just called an attorney and say, "Hey, I need 2 hours to answer questions," you're going to get a bill for it.
Yeah.
So, and that's across the board, not just attorneys. I mean, other operators, other syndicators, other passive investors. You can get wisdom online. The challenge, of course, is finding what's true and what's not, and what's worthwhile and what's not.
Mm-hmm.
So, I feel like if you can get in with people who you know are vouched for and have a experienced practice like Mauricio, an attorney, spend the time there. Don't spend it just in general Facebook chatter because you won't necessarily get the same thing out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and the group also feels really like warm and friendly, right? Like it doesn't feel like a lot of people are shilling in there, spamming in there, all
Mm,
this other stuff. Yeah, so I was stoked to meet you and several other people in that group. Before we get into, I did want to talk about tokenization and how you
absolutely.
feel about that and where you feel that's going. But I was curious, like, how did you get into like you seem like a relatively young guy. I mean, you could look young and be old. I don't know. We seem like the same age, or ish. I'm turning 37 next week. So I was just curious, like, how did you get into real estate syndications?
I have a little bit different path than most. My background is actually in television and the Hollywood entertainment industry. So I've always been a creative person. I'm into music. I play the drums. I went from music into television because I wanted to work at MTV and do music television back in the day. So I got a degree in film, and then I moved to LA and started working in television and became a television editor. And I still edit some to this day. So I have worked on TV shows like Duck Dynasty and America's Next Top Model and Rob's Fantasy Factory and mostly unscripted reality documentary TV. The
Wait,
challenge with that
reality
is
isn't scripted? I'm completely. You just blew my mind. I thought it was scripted the whole time. Or is it just edited so significantly that it seems scripted?
that's an interesting comment. I mean, look, 25% of the content you see on TV is soft scripted if you're watching reality TV. What that
Yeah.
means is that we are trying to elevate whatever content we have. And if that means that someone has a deep conversation, but they didn't say a few things that we may need to show that scene, we may ask them
Yeah.
to say a couple of things. But it's very different from a scripted, here's the script, go out and get these lines exactly. We don't do that. So
Yeah. Sorry, dude. I totally deviated from
that's all
the
right, man.
conversation. I just like it blew my mind for a sec. All right. Sorry. Go on. Yeah. So,
That's all right.
how'd your path take you from from TV to here?
Right. It's the opposite world. I mean, the thing is in TV you get paid well, but no one talks about money or finance or how to manage your finances. So most people in entertainment will get their money and go buy a BMW and a house, and they blew all their money. And I saw this long term of what is the end goal here? There's no retirement plan. There's no healthcare in TV. You just get paid per day. You work today, you get paid. You don't work tomorrow, you don't get paid. So I was like, I got to figure out some kind of long form, something that will secure myself, my family. And so I decided to get into real estate. All my money had been in the stock market before, and it does this, which is fine. But I wanted
Yeah.
something that would create income every month so I could stop working and know that that money is coming in. So I started getting into single family homes, decided that was going to be too slow. And then I got into investing in apartments, and I was investing passively in apartments and just having conversations with coworkers in the TV side. And all of a sudden I get these questions like, wait, what, you were where this weekend? I was like, oh, I was in Texas looking at a property, which is foreign, completely foreign to anyone in TV.
Yeah.
This weekend they were out at the bar, they were out at the pool, they were doing whatever. And I was focusing on my money and my future. So
Yeah.
that enticed a lot of people. And then people wanted to start investing and do, well, how do I do what you're doing? Like,
Oh,
well,
cool.
I've spent, I spent 4 years straight, morning, noon, at night, learning this and getting invested and getting my money on the line. So it's not something I can teach you over a lunch, but I can do as much as I can for you. And look, what I decided, I said, look, I'm buying this deal next time. Do you want to invest with me? And then people started investing with me. And that's how I kind of got into it. I saw a need for myself and my family. And then
Uh
I
huh.
parlayed that into being able to help all my friends who were just like me, completely clueless about their future of money, and decided I can help them that way. And that's how I
How?
started working with investors.
Yeah. Crazy. So, how many deals are you in right now that you're a GP on?
Today, I'm only a GP on two deals that are left. We just sold three in the last 6 months, and we had one of the two that I have left was under contract to sell, and we had to pull out of that a couple months ago because the debt market changed and the buyer wanted a discount on price, and we weren't willing to give it, so we pulled out of that contract. And so now I'm holding two more properties and invested in another, trying to remember how many I have left. Six other properties as a
Oh, wow,
passive
that's
investor
great.
right now. So,
So, what's the difference between a passive investor and a GP?
as a passive investor, it's the easiest thing you do. You take your money, you write a check, you give it to an
I just give
operator.
it to you, and then
What's
I
that?
don't think about it. I just give it to you, and then I don't think about it again.
Yeah,
I
it's
just give my money.
yep.
That's
And
awesome.
then you get to be a co-owner in the property. And I still do that today. If I find a good property with a good operator and I'm like, here's a check, you go and do it. I don't have to do any work. I mean, it doesn't get much better.
Yeah, that's the big question I have though is how do you know they're a good operator, right? That always
So
seems like so as a GP though you have more of a relationship with the operator and or you are the operator.
exactly.
Um, yeah, so with the GP deals, you're one of I assume like five or seven other people on that deal.
Exactly. And these are people that, like I said, I've been doing this now, not that long. I'm still pretty new at it, but for about 9 years, started diving into real estate. So I spent a lot of my time on people and relationships and networking, not so much in like online forums and stuff.
Yeah.
And that has served me really well because now the people I invest with are people that I've known for years, Or they're people that have been referred to me by people that I've known for years. So
Yeah.
I'm not, online necessarily like investing with random people. It's people that I know I've invested small amounts with in the past, and now I've partnered with them on deals that we're going to both be active investors on. So it's really been a growth and expansion of my network are the people that I work with now and in people I invest with. I'm always looking for new people to invest with. Honestly, it's part of the growing
I
process, I think.
yeah, I know, and I imagine just in my world in general, like in crypto and blockchain, you come across, and really, it's not just crypto and blockchain; it's investing in general. Like, I feel like anytime you get involved with money, you really come across some shady people, and when you find someone that's genuine and competent, like knows how to do their job, I feel like you just hang on to them like as much as you can. So do you find that a lot of your investors, do you get repeat business from them? You get a lot of retention from them?
But yeah, I mean, I have one investor who's been in 5 deals with me over the last few
That's
years.
perfect.
Just
That's
keeps writing
exactly what you
checks.
want.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, look, when you invest in a deal and I turn around and pay you out every quarter, or I double your money in 32 months, like our Florida deal, it's like this
That's
works. If it's
that's
not broken,
ridiculous.
don't fix it. But
Yeah.
at the same time, to be totally candid, I'll have my investors. If I don't have a deal I'm working on and I have a buddy who I trust that has a deal, I'll tell my investors, hey, go partner up with John over there. He's got a great deal. I would recommend that deal right now if you're looking to place capital. So
Oh, so you don't try to, and I'm kind of like segueing into regulatory stuff here, but
sure.
you don't try to leverage that, right? So like if you have, let's say, 50 people in your pocket that are ready to invest, you don't go to a GP and say, hey, I want to be a co-sponsor on this. I can bring X amount of money with me.
I mean, if it was a large amount, then I'd probably have that discussion. But
Yeah,
I'm talking like 3 or 4 people at a time.
yeah,
Here's some people over there. So it's
yeah,
not, I don't think every opportunity has to be leveraged. I think as it goes a long way just to be friends with other investors and go, hey, I don't have a deal for them. I know your deal's great. If I had the money right now, I'd write a check into your deal. So I would recommend for that for those people. So,
yeah.
but there's certainly
Well,
opportunity, I think, to do what you're saying. I just think
yeah,
like I said,
you get into regulatory issues too. So with the deals that you're a GP on, what's your role in that as a part of the team?
Yeah. So I spent a lot of my time raising capital for the deal, doing the investor relations for the deal, doing the due diligence on these deals, being out there in the field, going walking all the other properties, figuring out what our rents could be. And then, especially during like our Jacksonville deal, we're on the calls every week doing the asset management, looking at the business plan, figuring out, especially because we were holding these properties through COVID. So it's like figuring out what our business plan was and how it's had to adjust and how we can make moves to best kind of get through COVID and because things had to change a little bit, through business plans. So
Yeah,
it's it's half asset management, half investor relations, and then a little bit of due diligence when you first buy the property.
yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, so I think I got all my questions out of the way.
Man, I'm excited to talk
Uh,
about tokenization. You're talking about the future, right? I mean, I
I'm
spent a lot of
talking about
time learning
today. No,
learning
it's
real estate up to this point, and I love to be future minded. So when we got to talk, I was like, this is a guy who knows what he's talking about, not just trying to know what he's talking about. So I'm excited.
yeah. Well, there was a lot of people that came before me. So I've been in software development for over a decade, and uh, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, is where we started seeing stuff come out that was a lot more open source, and it wasn't people were really just contributing to code and just adding what they could, and then it gets tested, right? So there's a lot of people. When I look at where asset tokenization has gone, it from where it really kind of started taking off in 2017, where people started creating smart contracts for it and trying to figure out how to utilize it and integrate compliance and regulations into it. And so for me, and then you look at where, like, it still hasn't come to pass, right? We're just now seeing large funds allocate some of their capital or some of their assets into tokenization. And it's been 4 years, 5 years almost since the programmers really started creating the code for it. So for me, I I'm very fortunate to be in blockchain where a lot of people did the work for me already, right? Who did so all the code that people are using for asset tokenization, I don't want to say all of it, but the vast majority of it is is the same. Like you look at one platform to the next, and it's relatively the same. They do different things with various types of smart contracts, and they operate a different model, but the code is very well tested. Most of the code I was created probably in 2018, so it's been tested for years, and so it's easy for me just to take that because it's copyright free and it's open source and it's well tested and it has lots of developers on it and create a framework for it, right? So when I look at this industry, I look at it's gonna be about user experience, right? Because everybody's roughly using the same base code, and it's just it's I think it's a different perspective than I'm seeing a lot of other companies utilize right now. I'm gonna turn this back on.
Because people are trying to build their own versus repackage what's already there, but make it more user friendly.
No, they're not even trying to rebuild their own. They're just using the same base contracts, right? So we're using. I mean, we're using everybody's because why not? Like we're
Yeah.
using Tokeny, we're using Polymath, the best industry standard code we use in our platform because it's free, it's open source, it's copyright free. Why wouldn't we do that? Why wouldn't we let the user decide? Okay, I like this code base more. Let me use that code base. On my side, though, when I look at where asset tokenization is going, it's very much about user experience, right? So just talking to you in the last couple of days, it became very clear that uh, that we agreed on one thing: that nobody wants to deal with crypto, nobody wants to deal with blockchain, and they don't want to hear about it, they don't want to see it, they don't want to learn how to work a non-custodial wallet. And so, for us to be successful into transitioning people onto blockchain with tokenization of assets, we really have to ensure that those people never see it. That it's the same experience that they've always had with a cool new look, and it's easier,
Mm.
right? We should be making everything easier. But it seems that going into asset tokenization is difficult, right? So like people don't understand the technology, they don't have the patience to learn for it, and they're kind of just waiting for the market to move on it,
Mm.
right? It was just kind of what you said when we were talking,
Yeah.
and I'll just like wait for the market to and when the market moves on it, then I'll just adopt it into my process.
Exactly. Yeah, I figured this is going to happen. The whole world is going to end up mostly on chain somehow, and it should be that way. I feel like it has so much to offer, but the technical side of it is so intense that a layperson like me, it's like, look, I'm just trying to buy apartments over here, right? Like that whole side of it would be nice if it happened. I'm not going to be the one to create it, but I can't wait for it to be created. So yeah, it's extremely overwhelming when I've spent probably a solid 8 months straight in crypto, learning crypto, putting money in crypto, and I still have a hard time explaining it sometimes to people. So what about the person who they're a doctor, they're a lawyer, they don't have time to spend learning crypto, nor do they want to do crypto. That's the people that, we have to be able to make it very easy for that person. And if it's difficult for me, think about for that person, right? So to your point, the user experience has to be paramount and it has to be
Yeah.
very easy and seamless on them.
And is that what's stopping you from moving forward? Is that you don't feel confident enough, or that it doesn't that you can't explain this technology to investors?
No, I mean, what would be stopping me is I'm not going to create the platform to do it.
But there's platforms already out there, right? So I'm
I
just
couldn't
curious,
tell
like
you any
what?
of them.
Okay, all right. So
I
yeah,
couldn't tell
yeah,
you, like, I've been involved in 17 real estate transactions, and zero of them have been on chain, have anything to do with crypto or tokenization. And it, nothing, I invested in a deal 3 months ago. Nothing, it didn't stop me. There was no problem that needed to be solved, which was, I guess, a big, question with tokenization is like, what's the problem that you're solving? It's like one of those, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So for me, it's not worth my time to spend learning it when I can do the same process and it's working,
Hmm.
but I can't wait for it to exist that other people have created. Does that
Yeah,
make
yeah.
sense?
No, no, it totally makes sense, and I don't think the responsibility would fall on you to build the platform at all. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're a client to people that have platforms,
Mm.
but to your point, when you're talking about being able to convey this technology to people, or getting to know it and understand it. You work on so many things on the internet right now, and you're not aware of all the various security updates. So when we're talking about the benefits in tokenization of assets,
Mm-hmm.
we've got liquidity, we've got security, transparency, right? These are all things that are good, that are beneficial to investors, and it's just my opinion that I don't think you need to know about the technology unless you're interested in it, right? You just need to know that it's an upgrade, that it is more secure, that it is more transparent, that the data is that the smart contracts that process the tech is immutable, right? So if it's on a ledger and it was processed, you can see that transaction. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's no question and doubt, and so it eliminates fraud. So it's just kind of creating that better environment. I don't really see the need to explain the technology unless, again, you have an investor that is interested in the tech side of it and wants to understand like the inner workings. Because like I don't when Apple launches a new update, I don't read all like what was the tech up like what was the security protocols that were. No, I just make my phone more secure,
Mm-hmm.
make my data more. I don't care about the inner workings, right? And that's sort of like our take on it with focusing on user experience is we should be transitioning these assets into blockchain or tokenizing these assets, and the investors don't necessarily need to know, right? I mean, like I think that should be a disclaimer that that's where the data is being housed. But the experience on their side, it should be like getting an update on an iPhone,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like they shouldn't have to see how the sausage is made, right? Or like, yeah, so they should just be able to go about their daily life and be able to sell their assets easier, buy into assets easier, right? Protect their data, protect their identity, ensure compliance, right? These are all things that smart contracts are capable of doing. So, in the course of our conversation before we got on the show, you had mentioned I was trying to look for it, but you had mentioned like a couple different things on why why you thought that the that the tech was still going to take a couple of years, and I just remember responding. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I remember responding to you and saying it's the opposite of everything that you had just
Mm-hmm.
said. Do you remember that? Can you
I mean, I don't think exactly, but I think I'll kind of lay out why I guess stumped might be the word, but and it might be what you're talking about. But I feel like um, right now, if we're going to go buy a $10 million property and we're going to raise $3 million, investors wire $100,000 at a time into our checking account for the LLC. That LLC paperwork gets signed. You are now a co-owner in that property. So I feel like when you start implementing, hey, by the way, your money has to transition to some kind of a cryptocurrency, which then your recordings are all going to be on chain. Don't worry, it's on an immutable ledger. I feel like you're adding a lot of things that an investor is like, whoa, hey, wait a minute. I've heard of crypto getting hacked. I mean, Smart chain just went down yesterday. Like, I don't know if I want to be involved in that. Like, it's been working the last 30 years of my life when I just write checks and when I get invested in deals. Why is this necessary? And I think that is why I felt like this is a few years out in my brain, because I think that crypto is still such a new thing to most people. I think when you're in the, when you're in it, like I talk about real estate all day. So I'm like, of course, everyone understands real estate, but then you realize that 99% of people have no idea how real estate works. You can buy a building with 50 people. It doesn't have to be one person owns it. Oh, I didn't know that. Groups of people. Okay. Same thing
Yeah.
with crypto. I feel like it's more of like an osmosis. Like the more people just generally understand and accept that crypto is a part of life where it should be, I think that's when I feel like investors will be more comfortable. Now, whether it should be that way or not, I don't, it's not really my point is not that they should be on chain. They should understand. It's like trying to, to me, smart contracts are very easy to understand, but most people are like, so there's a smart contract and there's a code, and if you input, there's an in and an out. That's too much. I got the rest of my life to deal with. I can't learn something new. That was kind
Yeah.
of more my point. And
Yeah, no, and it's this like what I was saying before. It's when you're dealing with a new bank, you don't talk about how like you don't talk about their databasing centers,
right.
right? So it's kind of the same thing. I really think that people should just go about their day selling the product as they've always sold it, dealing with their investors as they've always done, but just doing it on better technology, right? And that's something that we focus on strongly. You also mentioned automation, stuff with automation. Okay, so but to answer your question with, so the way we work, right? So we can take crypto, we can take, and if we do receive crypto, unless the fund owner wants to do it differently, it's automatically converted into USDC.
Okay.
And so the fund manager can take any sorts of different types of crypto, and it'll automatically convert. You can take wire transfers straight into our platform, ACH, credit card, debit card, and credit card, debit card come with different fees, especially credit cards. But the USDC has a great policy with dealing with Circle, with protecting user funds. And so it all gets converted either into fiat or into USDC, something stable, or it's one of those two, but
Mhm.
stable, to ensure that the money is going to be the same value for the fundraiser. Um, and then when you do distributions, you're able to pay out in USDC if you want, or you can pay out in Bitcoin if you want, or you can get a wire transfer or ACH, right? So it's just opening up the opportunity to work with crypto if you want, but you don't have to pay with it. You don't have to receive money in it. You never have to have a wallet. That all is done in the back end. But
Which
you
is
had
the same
mentioned.
same thing when you go to Wells Fargo or Chase Bank and you
Mhm,
deposit $10,000, it becomes ones and zeros. Like they don't actually
exactly.
keep your cash. And I relate to that. It's a similar experience, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you wire money, you don't ask where the dollars are kept. It's just your amount that you have invested is recorded, right?
Yeah,
That's what you're
exactly.
saying. Okay.
Yeah, and so you don't see any of that on our system. You don't see any of that information, like the smart contract stuff and the tech. Um, you did mention something though about automation,
Mhm.
and that it's going to take a while, or you were under the assumption that it was going to take a while to do, or that it would be more of a pain in the ass to do distributions and all of that other kind of stuff.
So my
Uh,
question on that and my conversations with other people is that I think a lot of the parts of real estate investing lend themselves heavily to smart contracts and automation. If I'm going to wire in $100,000, the the process of that being recorded, my ownership share being recorded, that all makes perfect sense. That I think one of the challenges to me was all of the the art. I call it like the art of the art and the science. When you're operating your property and you go to do distributions, it has to be a conversation with the property management. Can we do distributions this quarter? Should we do distributions? How much should we do? Should we do the full 7%, annualized, whatever? Should we do that portion or should we push it another month? Should we do less this month? And typically we send distributions every quarter. And if that were the case where it was always done, yeah, put in a smart contract every quarter, the distribution happens. But for the times when you don't, or you're trying to, maybe we're going to hold back some, then I feel like the smart contract is what is waiting for you to just simply click do distribution and then it operate. Like, I guess that's kind of
So
my lack of tech understanding. Like it's not a
yeah,
black or white go or don't go.
yeah. Okay. So the way you do distributions right now, I would assume, and I don't know what platform you work on, but you make those decisions, right? The GP makes them, and or all the passive investors. I don't know how your system works specifically, but you come to a decision of like how much money, right?
Mhm.
And then what do you do? Do you mail checks out? Do you
We do ACH, yeah. So property
yeah.
management sends the ACH, and then all the investors, all the money goes out to the
So you
investor.
tell property management, and
Mhm.
then they figure out that like
Yeah.
where. Okay, so the way that the smart contract works is well. So our whole organization is set up as a DAO,
Hmm.
right? So which is a way for people to investors can see all the votes, right? So if this would be something. I mean, the DAO can control what goes to a vote and what doesn't go to a vote. But
Hmm.
let's say distributions was covered by a vote, right? So that you guys would have that internal conversation or external, like it'd be public with the passive investors, and you would make a decision where we are going to do distributions. It's going to be X amount. You just simply wire, not wire, but you transfer that money, like in our system. You would transfer that money to your distributions wallet, and right when it hits the wallet, that wallet is actually a smart contract, right? It's not a wallet, it's just like there's an easier way to explain it.
Yeah.
So you send it to that smart contract, and that smart contract is coded to, once it receives the funds, automatically distribute funds to each individual investor according to their plan, right? Or according to like
Their ownership share.
their ownership shares, and it's automatic, right? So as long as that doesn't change, and if ownership shares change, obviously that contract gets updated. So for me, it always seems like a lot more simple because it's sort of like this is the amount of money that we've allocated. So, like for instance, in a DAO, the way that it would work is you have a proposal that's sent forth. It says, all right, this is how much money we're gonna distribute this quarter, and it passes, right? So the
Hmm.
majority of the GP says agrees to it, and it passes. It instantly the money's sent. Like
Gotcha.
there's no contacting property management. The DAO controls what the functions are going to be, and then
Mhm.
the passive investors have access to the DAO to see how the DAO voted.
Mm.
Right? They can't see how each individual person, like the identity of that person voted, but they can see if there's six people that are GPs, then they can see how all six people voted, but they can't see who was that vote,
Yeah,
right?
it's really interesting because I feel like one of the things I have against a DAO is it's supposed to be it's a decentralized autonomous organization, right? That everyone who has ownership should be able to control somehow. And I'm like, well, syndications don't work like that. Syndications work with active investors and passive investors, where the active investors make all the decisions, the passive investors trust them to make those decisions. That's why they are passive investors.
Mm.
So I think initially I was like, well, why would you even have a DAO in the first place? Because I don't want the passive investors to have any say, because you don't want, a dentist who has no idea how real estate
Yeah,
works to be making decisions on
yeah.
whether or not we're going to upgrade to quartz or granite on the countertops. They have
It's
no idea
all
what the market.
coded. It's
Right.
all coded into it, right? So they wouldn't have
But
access to it,
yeah,
but
but
but they would be able to see it,
they would be
right?
able
So
to see it, which
that's
is
where
one of
the
the things I
transparency comes
think
in.
is I tout to my investors is like you are a co-owner. Like it should be transparent. If you want to see
Yeah,
financials at any time, give us a day or two. But here's the financials. You are a owner in this. So I
yeah,
love that idea that they can, if they wanted to see the code, obviously you'd have to make it, you know, not code. It'd have to be somewhere that they could understand what happened. But
yeah,
the
yeah. So
transparency is amazing sounding.
yeah, no, it is, and the UI is great too. We're not going to get to being able to show you the UI today, but
Mhm.
I mean, you are definitely going to see it, and it's incredible. Like yeah. I mean, we built it, so obviously I like it, but it's great. And I do look forward to your feedback on that. The other thing I wanted to mention is that, and this is a security thing that we run in our system,
Hmm.
but each individual investor, we they have custody of all their assets, and they're held inside of smart contracts. So, and again, with smart contracts, we can code them very specific to the individual investor, and we can do it in a very quick way. And so, when you do get distributions, what's actually happening is that distribution is being sent to a smart contract. And
Okay.
that smart contract for the individual investor is going to dictate where that money goes, right? So, an individual investor can say, all right, uh, I want to potentially fund I want to take my distributions, and I want to put 25% of it into a reservation with Chris Collins, right? Chris doesn't know what property he's going to do next, but he has a reservations account, and so if we can just temporarily house it there, which gives Chris Collins more of the ability to then say, because that's your trusted investor, right? And
Hmm.
so if you've got a reservation where you don't know what you're going to buy yet, but you see that you have the ability to have your investors start funding it, and it'll just open up your ability to find properties easier, to act faster. So that's one option. They could also say, 75 or another 25% I want to go into my trust, another 25% I want to go ACH. So they can dictate how their profit are distributed.
Hmm.
And it's a really clever way. I look at it like when I'm looking at my 401k, um, and I change the asset classes, or I change from like conservative to aggressive, right,
Hmm.
on
Yeah.
the different types of funds that the 401k is going to put my money into. It's very similar to that. So the investor just chooses how they want their distributions to be made, and the smart contract will automate it every time. So it's
Gotcha. So it takes the step out of sending them the full amount and then they have to then do whatever they're going to do with it. You're like, hey, we can cut that step out for you if you like. Like, we can just
yeah.
send you the full amount, or you can divvy it up from the smart contract, which is one of the things I love about, and I feel like people, that's what I'm saying, like smart contracts, crypto, tokenization, blockchain, it's has to be the future. It's such a smart way to operate certain things in life, not everything in life, but
Yeah,
things like that, like
especially in the financial sector
it's such
and
a
securities, right? Because like with compliance and stuff. Okay, so 506B, so you can't show your offerings to 506B, and so what we do currently on our site is, if we have a 506B, then you have to have an NFT to. So, and again, like, you would never see the NFT, but uh, when you go through your identity check, or if you come in on like another 506B offer where you are allowed to be there, the the system won't allow you to see any information unless you have this NFT. And it's just NFT gating content, and it's our way to ensure compliance, right? That the NFT that you get correlates with your identity, and is your digital identity. And so, depending on your accreditation status, it will only allow you to see certain things. So it'll protect investors from, or fund managers from, accidentally showing content
hmm,
to non-accredited investors,
hmm.
right? That's We have like tons of stuff like this. Like, it just, the when you get into the confidentiality layer, when you get um, into compliance and regulation, it's all coded in. So it protects investors, it protects fund managers and GPs from accidentally doing something, right?
Right,
Because
because I think what you're describing, the thing is, I feel like what people don't understand yet and what you have a firm grasp on is that what you're describing exists in other forms already, right? Like our
yeah,
money doesn't go into dollar bills in a bank account, it goes into ones and zeros. And what you're describing is some investors are accredited, some aren't. Some investors I would show all my deals to because I have already gone through a process with them to get to know them. They know who I am, I know their financial status. Then I can send them deals. Someone else I just met at a conference, I'm not going to send them deals. Well, for me, That's in my CRM. I can like click a drop down. Hey, this is like the inside circle. You can get deals. This is a drop down. You are not able to do that. So I'm taking email lists and separating them into different groups. But what you're saying is that that is happening by assigning an NFT to one and an NFT to another, right?
Yeah, you just put it out there, and the system will only allow people in that are allowed to have in that are allowed to be in, and if you're trying to send a message to certain types of investors that have a that have that specific identity, meaning like the accreditation status, it will only send to those people,
Right.
or make that information publicly viewable on our platform to those people, right?
Okay.
So anything like that, anything with compliance and regulation can be coded. We do operate a centralized database on top of all this, especially on the confidentiality layer. But it works seamlessly with the blockchain. We just use the blockchain, and that's how we solve the issue of being able to provide the same user experience where you don't see crypto and there's no part of that experience on our platform, is because it's really just an application that they're working on right now. We just created that as a layer, right? So in our tech stack, when they operate in our database like that, it just sends and feeds that information transactionally on chain, so that they can see it on chain.
Hmm.
And most of it is done more automatic than that, than running it through the database. They just on the identity side, that's where it's mostly, um, because these SEC and other regulatory committees have to have access to that information.
Hmm.
So that information has to be centralized.
Yeah, which is
But
interesting
yeah,
because I feel like that's one of the benefits of crypto is it can be anonymous in a way, right? Like you can just have your code, your wallet address, and that's it. But
mm,
this is not in the same vein, right? Like things need to be able to be accessed.
yeah.
Um,
I reference to healthcare a lot too, which is something I do want to get into with patient data, right? So like it's called HIPAA compliance, and with
mhm.
patient data, yeah, it's very sensitive, right? But with blockchain, it's the same thing as like in the financial sector. You would be able to see all patient data that wasn't identity related, right? So when a sales rep goes into an office, they actually can talk about a patient because they're not using name or anything that would reference the person's identity. They're able to see all the other data points if it were on chain, because
Yeah,
all they're seeing as the identity is a wallet address, right?
yeah.
So
And that's
no,
the
it's just
best, it's one of the best examples I think of why blockchain should be here ASAP for everyone is like your medical record. You know, if you go from Kaiser and you switch to Blue Cross and you switch to this, then you go to this hospital, inevitably some piece of paper didn't get transferred and like, oh, that's on their system, not this. I'm like, well, medical and health shouldn't be hospital or healthcare group like reliant, right? It should just
yeah,
be you, me. I come with this data. If I'm
yeah,
allergic to this, everyone needs to know it, not just so when you get into an ambulance and they click on your wallet and it's like, oh, here's all the information about you.
yeah,
You know, obviously there's larger issues with that, maybe, and it can get scary if you get too down that rabbit hole, maybe. But on a basic level, I think that is such an obvious. And most people, I think, would understand that. It's similar to a title on a building. This
yeah,
title belongs to this person because I can see on chain it belongs to that person,
yeah,
rather than well, let me do a search and check. It's like you shouldn't have to search. Just click on the address and here it is. That house
yeah.
now transferred to this person or it didn't.
And you
Um,
see the record of whoever owned that title like forever,
yeah,
right? And because as you transfer, to your point, as you transfer from information from database to database, information can be lost.
right.
So it definitely is the future. I think we're fighting an uphill battle of trying to explain why it's the future, when we don't have to explain it. We just have to implement it, right?
Hmm.
Because investors don't care, right? Nobody cares what the Apple update was. They just want the update, right? They want their data protected. They want the best system, the most transparency. They want to be liquid, and that's everything that blockchain offers.
I will
So
say, from my perspective as an investor, I feel like there's one of the challenges, I agree with your point, which is like no one should have to deal with, oh, I got a new Ledger wallet. I need you to do this. Oh, I got a Nano X. It's like you just transfer money. We do all that side, right? Like
Yeah.
Jared and team make all that stuff happen, but you still have to disclose, hey,
Oh
by
yeah.
the way, we're storing everything on blockchain. And I
Yeah.
think this is my assumption that the minute you say that, a lot of people will go, whoa, that's crypto. I don't want to be involved in crypto. And I think
Yeah.
that specific part is why I feel like this could potentially take years for people to just accept that that is normal. And it's
Yeah.
not that it should or shouldn't. I think it's just that they think of crypto as, weird, strange, techie. It's
Well, they don't understand the difference between crypto and blockchain, right? They think those are
exactly,
synonymous, and they're not at all, right? So,
exactly.
but that's why we invested in the studio, right?
Yeah,
So I can get on video and that we can explain the difference between blockchain and crypto, and that blockchain is a technology just like any other technology has evolved throughout time, and this is just the next step. And
yeah,
here are the reasons why it's good. None of the assets that we tokenize are volatile, like in the sense that like it's a token that can just plummet all of a sudden. It's not backed. It's backed against the asset, right? It's
mhm.
not. It's not backed against Ethereum or against Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin goes down or Ethereum goes down, then that whole asset goes down.
Yeah. These are
It's
not related, right?
no, they're not related at all.
Yeah,
And so I've even talked to people who said that they were really experienced in tokenization, that were citing that as like a big issue, and I was just like, this is crazy, this is insane that like you would ever peg an asset to or peg a token to an asset that was backed by Ethereum, right?
yeah,
Because then if Ethereum goes down, then the whole asset goes down. It's not like that, right? It's
right.
it's pegged it's pegged strictly to the asset. So if the asset goes down in value, right, like it gets hit by a massive hurricane, then or COVID, right? If the asset itself goes down in value, then the token does. Same is reversed, right? But I know we've got a hard stop here, and
I wanted to ask you one other question if you have like the two
I
minutes
have
here.
all the time for
Okay.
you. It's your hard stop, not mine.
Yeah, I got about
So
6 minutes here. But
yeah.
you one of the questions I had then, this might have been what you were referencing earlier, is the liquidity aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the benefits of tokenization is that you can cash out, you can cash in. It's in a typical syndication, you invest your money is locked into that property until we sell the property.
Mm-hmm.
There's extenuating circumstances where your shares could be maybe bought out by someone else or transferred to someone else. But for the most part, it's not supposed to get in and out. But with tokenization, I know in your process, it sounds like after a year, you offer the ability to like you can go ahead and cash out your tokens, like your shares can be swapped in and out. Someone else can transfer them because they're just little pieces of an asset, right? And I see that as a total hassle because I'm like, well, now you're having more. Your CPA is going to go crazy trying to track all the K1s from the old investors and the new investors, and then you're moving people in and
It's
out. The
all
documents have to be
automated.
re-signed. The LLC is now
Yeah.
being restructured because there's different members of the LLC, and I'm hoping that all that can magically be fixed with a smart contract. But I don't know if that's a benefit or a hindrance.
So if because there are a couple different points that you hit on there, and I get kind of long winded, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish all of
Okay,
it.
okay,
But if you structure your partnership or your LLC in Wyoming as a DAO LLC,
okay,
which is an LLC that's controlled by a smart contract, then all of it is automated. Every time a new person comes on or off, it's automated, right? As far as like having to sign the agreements and stuff, I mean, you have to process all that information, but all of our contracts, our legal contracts, are done through smart contracts. They feel just like the smart contract. You sign the actual well, you just click a button, but it's a signature, right? It feels just like DocuSign, but
okay,
the signature is recorded on chain. And when that transfer of ownership occurs, it's registered with the DAO LLC, which is the legal entity in Wyoming. If you have it set up that way, which I think is the coolest, most awesome way to do it,
Right, because you don't need a
then
person in that instance to go, okay, well, as the CPA or as the attorney, I'll redraft up these new documents. Hey, did you get the new signature? All right, let's make sure we click and file that. And none of that has to happen, right?
no, it's all automated, right?
That is
So
amazing.
yeah, so and even if you work outside of a DAO LLC, you can still automate a significant portion of that, and then you can have documents that are automatically printed and sent over to the state or to the SEC or wherever you have to relay that information, the transfer of ownership. A lot of
Mhm.
that's on the transfer agent too, which is what we are, what like our platform acts as the transfer agent. Um, but yeah, no, in K1s, all that is very, very, very easy to do through blockchain and to automate and to then like pre-fill out forms and make sure that the right stuff is going to the right place. To your point on or your suggestion on how our liquidity pool works, this isn't something I actually talk about very much because it's more on the phase two. Like right now, we're just trying to get
Okay.
the software out.
Yeah.
But the liquidity aspect, it still is an issue, I think, for like when people are saying liquidity is the number one reason why people should be doing asset tokenization. Yes, that's true, but if you're not operating on the same system as someone else, it becomes a lot more difficult. And you have to be able to be in the same secondary market. And the secondary markets don't really exist right now because a lot of syndicators are operating their platforms on like how they manage their relations and their shares. They operate them on white label uh, software, right? Where it's like your syndication dot syndicationpro.com or like whatever it
Hmm.
is. And those are separate databases. Okay, so like it's not in a secondary market. They all have to be in the same spot, and that's where you're going to get a lot more, or being able to work with other secondary markets to transfer assets.
Hmm.
That's why liquidity, the secondary market doesn't really exist right now because
Gotcha.
yeah, it's not on there. But we're operating it a little bit different, especially for deals where we are the GP. We back not only do we back the token is pegged to the asset, but we back it with our cryptocurrency, which is
Hmm.
why I don't really talk about it very often.
Sure.
So essentially, what because I don't talk about crypto because it's that's not really a
It
thing.
scares people, right?
We're
Yeah.
talking about blockchain. But if they do want that option, like we will buy them out, and it'll come from our liquidity pool on the crypto side,
Hmm.
right? And it's not available to everyone. Like we have to want to buy that asset, but it does make it a lot easier for people to potentially get out, and a lot of that's dependent on our liquidity pool.
Okay.
But as that grows, because all of our profits, all of them, go into our liquidity pool, and so the more deals we're in, the more money we're making, the larger our liquidity pool gets, and so we're able to buy people out. Because for us, it's not about cash; it's about property, right? It's
Mhm.
about having assets, and so we're constantly gonna be driving our money into the liquidity pool, our profits, so that we can then take those when they're available to purchase those assets because they're on our platform. We
Mhm.
know everything about those assets. We know everything about that investor. We know everything about that deal. It's being done on our platform, right? So it's very easy for us to look at it and say, all right, like we know undeniably what the distributions have been, the scheduling, how the DAO's been working, like what issues they've had or not had, the management, all of that. So it's very easy for us to just boom right away. Cool, we want that asset. We'll take it. No problem.
Hmm. Right.
Yeah. So that's more phase two for us.
Okay.
I mean, it's been up and running for like 6 months, but I don't talk about it because people aren't ready to hear about crypto. So I just try to tell them about blockchain.
Sure.
But even still, like just to talk to them about how you can have all the benefits without having to deal with learning about it.
Right.
But you do have to disclose it. So,
Sure. Yeah.
uh, Dude, I really appreciate your time coming on and talking to us about real estate syndications. I definitely see it as a way to be a smart and savvy investor and be a passive investor, and for people to really take control of their financial freedom and health, right? So their financial health for retirement. It's definitely something I'll be pitching to people, and so I'm stoked that you came on the show, and I look forward to building up a relationship with you and answering any questions that you have about blockchain and get some feedback from you on our software.
Yeah, I appreciate your time, man. It definitely is the future. I'm excited. It's nice to know people who know what they're doing, because plenty of us can have conversations about it, and it kind of ends with, "Well, I don't know, we'll see." And I was like, "Well, you're the person actually doing it, and understand the
Yeah.
tech behind it. I'm the person who understands the need for it, but not the tech side. So it's great
Yeah,
to have
you
a
give me
relationship."
insight. Yeah, you give me insight though, a lot on how you want information displayed, right? So like
Sure.
when we're talking about UI UX, I people like you tell me how you want to read information, or how your investors want to receive it, or how they want to see the DAO or not see the DAO.
Sure.
So I mean, I could code stuff all day, but in the end, I'm not a syndicator, right? And I'm not a GP. So it takes syndicators and GPs to tell me, what is the best user experience.
Sure.
Yeah. So I
Okay.
definitely look forward to collaborating with you and getting to know your company a little bit more.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jared. Appreciate your time.
Yeah. Thank you, man.
All right.
All right. Bye.